Okay, for this week's project, I did the balloons popping project that was assigned to us, and I created a class to hold the scene that handles all of the initialization and allocation and deallocation of memory and all of that fun stuff, and handles the buffers and basically everything GL needed, OpenGL needed. The main is literally just creating it and then initializing it, and then it runs, and then return whenever that's finished. So we go in here and let's show you. It has all of the stuff in here that needs to be there for initializing glut and GL. And then the display function is a member function that is it's a static member function that points to a non-static member function, but it checks to make sure that there's an instance before it does that. That's just, I'm not 100% sure why it needs to be this way. I think it's because OpenGL wants it to be a void pointer, and if it's a member function, it's not a void pointer type. I think that's the reason for that, but this works. So all of my callbacks and stuff are static, and then they either, if it's simple, they do it on the on the actual function, or if they're more complicated or I needed to reference non-static members, they call a non-static version of themselves. So implemented a reshape. This does orthographic. I just left it as 2D to simplify. Callback for the mouse just passes it over to the mouse handler, which could have lots more things in here. And then select. Basically just do what we did in class. I render everything as their select colors, and then I get the pixels at the point where the mouse is, and then I compare to the IDs that are on the balloons. And I'm using plus or minus the epsilon float just to account for any rounding errors. That there was some false positives, false negatives without this, and this allowed me to make sure that I was actually selecting the right balloons. Yeah, and then a couple flags on the balloons get touched there, and then the balloon class handles the actual rendering for that. So checks a couple flags first, and then sends over the model view for this particular balloon to the GPU. They're all using the same vertexes. They're just drawing them at different places with different properties. And then we're drawing it as a triangle fan. And then the select render is really smart. It just changes the select render flag, and then it calls the render, and in there's a check that just renders it as a select color if this flag is set, and then it de-sets it afterwards, unsets it. I implemented a bunch of transforms, move to, translate, scale to, scale by. These do slightly different things. Like translate is relative translation, move to is like absolute translation, scale by is relative, scale to is absolute. And then I wrote an animate function that uses those to actually do the animation. So if it's popped, we just reset it. But if it's not popped, I'm not using this. I was using this to stabilize how fast they were changing, but I thought that it looked better without that. So changing the cumulative scale by how much we're changing the scale every 20 milliseconds, and then same thing for the position, and then I just scale by that, and I translate by that, and then I got post redisplay, and then I call the animate function again on the timer, which is pretty nice. And then I have here all the verts are just, it's just like a static const function that returns the vertexes. This is used in the scene for adding the geometry to the VAO. That I think is it. Note that I did change the make file, so because I'm using multiple files, so I had to add recipes for everything. So if you're gonna compile this code, the make file that I included should work. I changed it back to the default path. So if you're compiling on Ubuntu on the lab Ubuntu machines, this should be the correct path, and it has the recipes in there, so it should just work. I was having trouble getting it to compile with make. It was thinking that it was up to date, so I was using make-b to always compile. I don't know if that'll be relevant to your situation. So let me show you this running. Oh, I changed this. That was because I changed the file location. Got to change that back for, because I have it in a different path. So. So here it is, and then it reshapes. If you let the balloons pop, you lose points, but popping smaller balloons gets you more points, and then they move off the screen, so you have to be kind of quick to try and get them. So there's like an element of strategy to it, and they move up and expand slowly, but not super slowly, so you can try and get them while they're still small to get more points. And it's a little bit tougher to do that. So, and if I just let it run, you'll just see that there's lots and lots of balloons in different colors, and they eventually get to a size that they pop, and then they disappear, and you lose points. So, but I think that is all that I needed to show.